one of my other brothers talks
Hey,
about
welcome
life is
back
like
to
a
the Crew
pizza,
First Culture
and you
Podcast. This is
have to have all
Jeremy.
the
Thank you
wedges
for
to
joining
be
us
truly happy.
today. This
And
is
those
going
wedges
to be
represent
part three
finances,
of the
emotional,
three-part
your
series
spiritual health,
of my
your
conversation
mental health,
with
your
Nathan
physical
Gardner.
health, right? If you don't
So
have all
hopefully
those
you've
pieces of
listened to the
pie,
first two. If you haven't,
you're missing
please
something.
go back and get
And there's
yourself filled
nothing
in. We're going
worse
to jump right
than
back into where we
perpetually
stopped
being in a search for
and
something.
learn
It took me
and just
forever,
enjoy the passion that
literally pulling my bunker gear
this
down out of
great
the
friend of
attic,
mine has for
holding like a child
the
and bawling
job
my eyes
and for
out
the people doing it. So thank you for your
because I couldn't
time.
process never
Hope you
being a
enjoy
fireman
it.
again.
See you at the end.
And, people, everybody's got something nice to say, you're always a fireman. Well, I'm not going to sit on that rig again. I'm not going to experience looking in that back seat and looking out the front window and seeing a huge column of smoke and seeing that rookie in the back that we have shed blood, sweat, and tears over the last 2 years training. And we show up and that kid kills it. And his eyes are that big. You get back to the station and, Cap, that was crazy, blah, 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 blah. I'll never have that again. But if you shift your perspective just a little bit, 3 feet to the left or the right, and you look on your career and go, man, how many dudes or chicks never get this opportunity? I got to do it for 17 years. The biggest injury I had was not my 5 spinal fusions. It was the insult and the injury to my heart that I felt as though I had lost my purpose. And man, if you want to talk about a paradigm shift, when you find out what your purpose is, then you can truly live in happiness, because I think that's what we're created with. I think everybody's got a destiny. Everybody has a place where they're going to end up. My buddy John says uh, you know, you're perfect how you are, and you're right where you're supposed to be. Nothing happens overnight, and understanding that everything that we engage in is going to be a war. If you create that mindset that you're going to battle every day, man, it's just so much easier to kind of process and hold yourself accountable for some of the things. Like I'm wrestling right now with doing another diet, and that's my weak point. And um, I have to get like this workout I did this morning, man. If I didn't just piss myself off, and I have a bunch of people, motivational guys that I look to. Jocko does this thing where he makes me feel lazy by 5 o'clock in the morning because he's already put up a picture of this sweat soaked freaking thing with his hands ripped off. And um so when I look at that stuff, I don't want to look at it. I want to lay in bed. I don't want to get up. um but when you hear somebody like David Goggins, or you watch him beat the shit out of his running shoes because he does not want to go for a run, you're like, okay, all right, even the baddest mofos on the planet wrestle with the same exact thing that I do.
Yeah.
Because we strive normalcy, right? That was one of the biggest things that killed me as a young guy. You know, After a bad call, I'd be the only one in the day room, and I'm all messed up, going, "Am I the only one? Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Like, what? I'm the only one that's upset by this 3-year-old getting hit by a car." Well, come to find out, as you start coming through your career, you realize those guys are just as messed up as you, but that's why they're in their bunk, because they don't have the balls to show. Or no, let me take that back. It has nothing to do with balls. Nobody has created that that thought process in them. That, man, when we talk about bringing up the young guys, there's a whole world to that. It's not just the physical skills.
Yeah.
It's creating a mental state for them where they can process this stuff and feel comfortable doing it. This has nothing to do with being soft or anything like that. Um, One of my favorite things is educating guys on the fact that it's not even when your parents procreated, it's when your grandparents procreated that your genetic profile is already set in motion. And when I teach this, it's always fun because I'll pick the most ripped, shredded kid in the class and I'll pull him up to the front and I'll say, okay, me and Jonesy here, we're at the clinic. We both just got diagnosed with high blood pressure. Pretty sure mine is a lifetime of bad decisions. Cheeseburgers, Guinness. That's the reason why I'm hypertensive. But this young buck right here, shredded, he hasn't even had enough time to make these bad decisions. He got fucked by his grandparents. This is in your genetic coding, right? They did a study where they studied the grandchildren of Auschwitz survivors. This is really riveting because this allows guys the freedom to understand that being upset and showing emotion has nothing to do with weakness. When you are created, you are going to have a predisposition to either vulnerability or a vigilance to these extrinsic stressors. That's already written in stone. So it's literally written in your DNA prior to you ever even taking a breath, how your body is going to react to massive loads of stress. What they found in that study was really interesting. And I don't want to quote it verbatim because I might get a little messed up, but the gist of the study is that because the grandparents were so hypercortisolic the entire time they were in the internment camps, it literally created an environment where they could not produce cortisol anymore. So fight or flee, fight, flight or freeze, they had no fight. They didn't even have the ability to freaking flee. They literally just froze. Well, they started doing research on the grandkids, and the grandkids who's never experienced any stress or any trauma are the exact same way. They have zero ability to process any type of endangerment situation, any type of adversity, because written down in their genetic code from their grandparents is a hyper vulnerability to any type of stress. Has nothing to do with them, their life experiences. This was already been set in motion 50 years ago. That is a very powerful fact when guys and girls can completely embrace that and go, okay. Now there is a danger of this too. You can't just look at it and go, well, I was screwed. My grandparents screwed me over. It's over.
Victim mindset. Yeah.
Right. But in knowing so, man, how powerful is that, right? You know this is your demon. This is something that you have to overcome. We, on the other hand, because stereotypically, I'm going to say, listen, you're at 9/11, that's PTSD for sure. But stereotypically, sleep deprivation, the calls, the moral insult, the moral injury, shit, dude, I try to explain to people what it's like living with 12 other alpha males. The stress of trying to maintain your place just in the pack. I didn't have to run a call. I could come home and be exhausted just from talking shit all day to maintain my position in the hierarchy. Because seniority is everything. And if you don't have the seniority, you better show the skill or whatever to be able to still talk on par with the senior guys that got their reputation or their power just by the years that they were on. Name another job where you can just absolutely be a dick to your coworkers because you've been there longer. Name another job, man, other than first response. Can you imagine being in an office and being like, hey, Rook, better get those TPS cover sheets on. I ain't doing it. I got 10 years in here, bro. You only got 4. Better get on those TPS cover sheets. No, it just doesn't work. You have a specific job. You're responsible for that. And you're judged off of those actions, right? Not in the fire service. We literally have guys that will sit in a recliner all day because they're the senior Jake. And I'm all about seniority, man. I respect the living hell out of anybody that's gone through this torturous career and come out basically unscathed. But again, I have the sneaky suspicion that unless you're willing to do the work and understand the possible pitfalls of this career, the only other way you can deal with it is just completely ignoring the shit's happening.
Yeah.
So if you're not willing to do that and you're someone like us who has pride and passion, 90% of the decisions that come down from headquarters are moral insults and moral injury stuff.
Yeah.
We feel as though they have no concept of what we're going through. And it is ironic because most of these guys have been in the seats that we've been in. And you're like, how did you forget what this job is about? Yeah. And when did you forget that creating strong leadership and pride and tradition is one of the hallmarks of the fire service? And when you start taking that away from us, we start losing our identity as who we are. And if you're one of those guys like, oh, he's all ate up, dude, I know everything I need to know about you. The second you say something like he's all ate up, you mean he's passionate about the job? Yeah. Yeah, I am. Because I can literally kill somebody if I don't do the right thing. Yeah, I'm passionate about it. So when your administration demonizes you because you're salty, that's probably one of the biggest ones, right? Yeah. You know, there was a whole bunch of us got lumped into a group, and it was impossible to get out of that group. And just one of those things where it's so important that the general populace of first response understands that they're not alone in that fight against everything that we don't believe in, you know?
Yeah.
You're not alone. There are guys all over the country and girls all over the country that are wrestling with the same exact thing you are. And honestly, man, I think, to be completely honest, I think that the moral insult and moral injury is infinitely more important to focus on than even the traumatic incidents. Because what we're finding is that these traumatic incidences have a synergistic effect based off of your childhood. So a lot of guys and girls have had pretty significant issues before they even came in the fire service. The calls just exacerbate them. Mm-hmm. It's not the calls. I mean, dude, how many times when you were young, I mean, dude, I used to be covered in blood. The more blood you had on you, that just meant that you had a great shift. And I embraced that. But it wasn't until you get older and you start growing up and you go, man, that was somebody's kid. You don't think about that in the beginning of your career. Nobody tells you about that there's going to be a paradigm shift halfway through, or that when you have kids, everything's different now.
Yeah.
That seat on my rescue is open for every pediatric intubation because I was the only kid at the station that didn't have kids. I was the only guy. And they were just little mini adults to me. I didn't have that correlation. I didn't have that relatability. But holy shit, my daughter wasn't even born. My wife was 8 months pregnant, and it started to where I would see a pregnant woman or a kid and just start going, man, what happens? What if that happens to my wife?
Yeah.
But if you don't have that, it doesn't bother you. Mm-hmm. And what we seem to forget, just like when people get in relationships too young, is that we're going to grow. And in that growing period, are our morals and ethics going to align with the departments? Are they going to go away? Same thing with, your girlfriend. Yeah. You get married when you're 18. The chances of you staying married are relatively low. I mean, they're relatively low depending on whenever you got together now, but it's really low because you don't even know who you are yet. how can you be in love with a person and that doesn't even know who they are yet? They're going to change. And
Yeah.
we don't ever talk to the young guys about this transitional period and these defined moments in life that are gonna 100%, unless you're a sociopath, these milestones in your life are gonna have a dramatic effect on your ability to process shit at work.
Yeah.
But we don't ever address it. We don't prepare our people for, I've even looked at our careers, and you can literally put them into 3 or 4 different. Everybody has the same thing, right? When you get hired, amazing. Your first promotional test, amazing. Um, you remember a whole bunch of milestones in your career. Um, and each one of those is probably very deeply steeped in pride. So without that pride, I don't think that guys are willing or girls are willing to push themselves to the point where they need to be highly proficient at the job. So therein lies, if this isn't something that you're 100% committed to, your ability to deal with this stuff is going to be so low compared to somebody who's
Yeah.
willing to persevere through it.
Well, for me, you talked about the moral injury being worse, I guess, or however you worded it, than that, the stress and the things we see. For me, I totally agree with that, and this is why. So the things I see and the things we deal with on scene, they I'm there to help. I'm there to do my job. I had nothing to do with why we are there and what caused it. I have nothing to do with that. However, on the moral injury side, the things that I am feeling and facing and the pain that I am feeling is because of something I know is to be right. Like we talked about, I know that what we're trying to accomplish or what we're trying to push or whatever is where we need to be, but it's being shut down or it's being ignored. And so that to me is like it's personally tying me to that outcome. And I think that's why for me, I can only speak personally, but for me, that is why it truly is more. I don't know what it more is more of, but it's more hurtful and painful and harder to get over. I feel like just from my own perspective.
Well, it's deeply personal, right? Um, when you feel as though your morals, which are your guiding force, are being manipulated or are being subjugated, it's a problem. And you brought up a good point. So we'll take it like this, right? Um, when you have worked so diligently to create a mindset within your station, within your battalion, and you find something that the guys really and the girls really embrace, and now this order comes down that all this stuff that you just put all your time and effort in, and where it really gets poignant for me is when I started making the correlation of the time away from my family. And there's no way for administration or anybody above you to truly process the sacrifice that it takes to create good lesson plans, come up with something that's new that's going to captivate the guys' attention so that they are going to remember even 10% of what you're trying to teach them, right? There's this massive divide between the lack or sometimes I feel like it's a genuine just they don't care, but how difficult it is, especially in like with my department, dude, we're 1,600 guys. Kelly, to have a shift where your whole crew is there, your whole crew, it is such a rarity. So when you do finally get a group of guys that are not, and especially for us, like with as many people as we have, you got to have a ton of seniority as an officer to bid a decent station. So if you don't have that seniority, you're just going to be in one of those stepping stone stations that you get chunked in. But I found that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me because that gave me the ability to learn how to be a captain. I was forced. I had
Yeah.
my first shift with one station. The guy comes in. It's not even 6:30 in the morning yet. We start at 7:30, and he comes in. He goes, "Hey, Tuna." I go, "Hey, buddy." He goes, "So you're here for the year?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "So are you still the same?" I was like, "Am I still the same? When you so we're gonna be training all day?" And I go, "All right. Well, if that's how you want to start, yeah, we can pull the ladders out right now. But that that's give me some grace. Let me work into this. And then, later on down the road, when we are doing training and this old guy's all beat up, and I pull him aside and go, "Hey, listen, dude, I need a victim for this next go around. Don't let the guys beat you up, but would you be willing to do the victim?" "Yeah, of course." So I know he's hot. I know he's bothered. He's giving me some effort. So I'm going to take care of him. I'll make it. He's not going to have to climb 6 flights this time. And the irony is the very next morning before we leave shift, I get a knock on the door. And same guy comes in, he sits down, he goes, "I know what you did yesterday, Tuna." I go, "Oh yeah, what's that? What did I do yesterday?" He goes, "You took care of me." And he goes, "I'm in. Whatever you want to do, I'm in." Man, uh, I took one of the oldest crews in the county uh, that had a captain that didn't like to train a lot. And we went down, and for like 3 months, we had the fastest time. Our average age was 54 years old. And we were at a station that's not very busy. That was something I wasn't super proud about, but that station ran really, really messed up calls. So it was important to me that, when you have low volume, high seriousness calls, that's where, that's where bad things can happen. Right. But after a year of training with these guys and creating that family environment, man, I don't think I was ever prouder or more proud of anything that I ever did than and having a 55-year-old guy in the back seat bouncing around the whole way back from training like he's a 17-year-old kid because he VES the window and got the victim by himself, where the guy couldn't throw a ladder 6 months before.
Yeah.
Man, that's rewarding, right? And so for me, those are the things that the higher ups don't see. They don't suffer through with us all the steps and all the shit that we had to do to get to the point where we're at. On more importantly than that is that when you have chief officers that were never good firemen to begin with, who aren't motivated, that don't come out and train with their guys, that's when things like vertical ventilation just go away. Uh, Life-saving shit that when you train on it, it's really not that dangerous at all.
Yeah.
Uh, but if you don't know how to do it, yeah, there's the potential there to get really hurt, right? But if your chief was high speed and low drag and he came out and he trained with you, like some of my badass chiefs, I didn't have to ask. I'm on the ladder truck. We're going to the roof. Period. End dot. But it took years of training with that guy, getting him on board to feel comfortable in what our potential was so that he would do it.
Yeah.
We run so scared now, and there's this mindset that firefighting should be safe, and we should make it as safe as possible. But there's nothing safe about firefighting. I took an oath. I dove head freaking first into canals for people and almost broken my neck because I was an idiot. But you know, that call right there, we had a rolled over van, right? And we had a farmer standing on the side of the road, and he looks at my chief and he goes, "Man, you should be proud of that, dude. If you guys all acted like that, you guys would be the best fire department in the world." And I didn't do anything important. I literally dove into this canal. But the fact that I did it with such fervor, and the fact that I was willing to put everything else aside for somebody else was
Yeah.
highly impactful for a civilian because they don't see it, right? We get so accustomed to that, Brunacini, hey, we pull down the road and there's a fire. Well, you think the trash guy screams and yells when he pulls up to the street and there's trash cans all down the road? No, he just knows he's going to work. There's truth in that. But there's also, we forget how powerful the human mind is and all the tricks and all the trip ups that it can create for ourselves. Uh, you know, there's a fantastic motivational video I'll send you, but there's this one part where he says, when you're standing next to somebody and they have no idea there's gunshots going off in your head because you're just one of those people that keeps it and internalizes everything. Um, you don't realize the severity of that moral injury until it's too late. That's because you don't truly know that it's happening at first. And once the slow recognition of like, here they go again, they're just going to thwart the next thing that I'm trying to do. That creates this defeatist mentality. And that's where burnout starts. And man, uh, I know personally, burnout will take out the best dudes on the planet.
Yeah.
Some of my biggest mentors, uh, it was the hardest thing in the world to watch these guys fall.
Yeah.
And it's because they were so passionate and so high speed. And every single day, the irony of the shitbirds never getting in trouble
Yeah.
and the guys that are passionate about it, that are trying to do the right thing, are getting in trouble. That in and of itself is a systematic, holistic moral injury that we feel, guys that go to conferences, guys that go and interact. And this isn't just our departments. This is literally everywhere,
Mhm.
whether it's to do with money cuts, whatever, a new chief that has a whole new way of thinking. It, these are things that just slowly add on, just like Rhett. You know, you
Yeah.
don't think that call bothered you, but 2 seconds later, you get another one, and then another one, and another one. And before you know it, man, you haven't slept in 24 hours. You go home, your wife just chucks you a baby. And therein lies a real dilemma, right? Because we have a built in excuse, firemen do. I used to lie to my wife all the time. How how was your night? 6 after midnight, man. It was rough. I didn't do shit. But because I didn't have any calls, doesn't take away the mental stress of being
Yeah.
there, the
Yeah.
moral injury, all the other shit. I would be mentally exhausted. But the reality is, my wife was home with 2 kids for 24 hours. And that's one of those moments you define it, or the moment's going to define you. That's where you man
Yeah.
up and take the kid. Or you've established a routine with your wife where you go, listen, it's one of those mornings, man. I just need an hour, or I need 2 hours, whatever. But those are things that we're not taught. We're not even exposed to until we're dealing with it ourselves. And the point that I was going to make is, so one of the biggest things that I feel as though why we're able to be protected on calls and stuff, we have policies, we have protocols, we have SOGs, right? I don't think we're guided by something. There is no protocol book for PTSD. There's no policy book for RET. There's no SOGs for uh mental health.
Yeah.
There is no SOG on how we take care of ourselves. There's SOGs on every other mother loving thing on the planet, but we haven't made the correlation that our mental health and our physical health directly correlates to our ability to do the job. And if
Yeah.
we did, our focus would be so different. Um, and I think that's something that's really important, is like just the ideology of RET, the repeat exposure, right? It doesn't even have to be repeat exposure trauma. It can just be repeat exposure stress. Not, one of the funny things that you think about, like that we don't ever think about, right? One of the extrinsic stressors is so profound is heat. Dude, I ask guys, I'm like, you ever worked in extended extrication in the summer in Florida? What's what's the mindset on that scene? Everybody, after 20 minutes, the frustration is so bad. Everybody's barking at everybody. Everybody's on edge, and nobody can understand why. Well, it's because you haven't eaten today, and it's 100 and freaking 4 So that's all. I think one of the biggest things that should be a focus in the fire service right now is the moral insult and injury, because it
Yeah.
affects probably your highest performing guys the most.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And I'm just, again, speaking personally, just because that's all I got. But it's just interesting because I find myself in this weird, just no man's land of being somewhere between enraged and wanting to freaking burn the place to the ground and just wanting to crawl up in a ball and cry. You know what I mean? It's like, why does it have to be this way? And whatever. It's just weird. But that just that kind of in between state shows you how powerful that is. And I mean, I think that there's a lot to be said about it. Definitely a lot more that needs to be said about it. So is there
yeah, if we ever
anything
do this
else
again,
on that?
man, if we ever do this again, we can do a deep dive on it, because when I did, I was really surprised at the severity of the consequences of it.
Yeah.
Um, and we just snooze on it because it doesn't, we just, it's so easy to compartmentalize that and go, oh, you're just pissed at administration.
Yeah,
No, it
exactly.
has
Yeah.
nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
that's
be,
why I said that at first, is because I see that so easily just kind of pushed under the rug as throwing a fit because you don't get your way. And
yep,
it's so
that's the
not even
umbrella, right?
close.
That's the umbrella
Yeah.
excuse that um, is one that if you care and you want to know, we can easily explain our mindset.
Yeah.
But you don't want to know our mindset, because our
Yeah.
mindset exposes the deficiency in you.
Yeah.
So we don't want to talk about that. But what we want
Yeah.
to talk about is the fact that, you're so ate up, and if you don't get your way, you're going to bitch about it. Well, yeah, I am, because it's important.
Yeah.
And we all know the squeaky wheel is the one that gets the oil, right? Uh, I've sat by idly before on important issues simply because of the fear of retribution. And, once you get some seniority and you get a couple of bugles, you lighten up a little bit on, defending your moral stance, and you have a little more credibility to do so. But that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to have seniority. You shouldn't have to be an officer to be heard. That's if we started listening to our young guys. I mean, one of the biggest cases in point is the new generation, right? I would have old guys lose their shit because they're like, these guys just want to ask questions. Like, yeah, they do.
That's how you
Since they've been
learn.
born, they've had this magical plastic electronic box that
Yeah.
anytime they've had a question, it's immediate. They they're inquisitive. Wouldn't you rather have them be asking you questions about fire than on their phone? Be excited, man.
Yeah.
This is your role as a senior Jake, man. Answer these questions. And when you realize that they're actually, because everything has been explained to them, faith is not a part of the new generation. I don't know how many things I was told, just believe in it. Well, it's not. I can't touch it, but it's real. Yeah, but how's it real if I can't touch? What are you talking about, man? Like, it's this, intangible that we're supposed to just believe in. When somebody would tell me something, dude, my stories went to shit when Wikipedia came out, because now everybody can fact check me
Fact
on the
check
fly.
it.
So like my tuna tales went from like tuna tales to like tuna stories to tuna mini stories, because guys would be like,
Hang on a second. Let me check that.
camel spiders do not run 38 miles an hour. I'm like, whatever, they're fast. I just threw that in there because it's dramatic, dude. I was born in the wrong time, man. I should have been born in the 1800s on a whaling ship, being that guy who sits around the barrel at night telling stories.
Spinning yarns.
Yeah, I'm a yarn spinner, man. And so with that vein of thought, though, you don't realize how intelligent these kids are.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's just useless shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, my son can tell you right now, every freaking dinosaur on the planet, and he's 6. He knows about all kinds of stuff, and his vocabulary is like that of a, and he knows it in context. And that's from being on the iPad and watching his nature shows. And I didn't have any of that. There was none of that. Your nature show is go the hell outside. So I only knew. So like the first time I saw an elk, I was like, what is that? That doesn't look like a deer. Well, dude, unless somebody told me what an elk was and I went to the library and fought the Dewey Decimal System, I wasn't going to find a picture of what an elk looked like. But
Yeah.
now they're like, oh, a Tasmanian rainbow river dart. Oh, okay, cool, cool. I know what that is. Dude, you would never know what that is.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, these kids are so saturated with the idea of why. I started realizing, man, there's legitimate value in explaining why we do something.
Yeah.
That in and of itself, and that's where the moral integrity comes in too, right? If you know that what you're doing is right and you know why you're doing it, man, you can really stand in your truth then.
Yeah.
But when someone calls on you and goes, why are you doing that? That's the worst feeling in the world. Going, I don't know. I don't know why we do this. And it all goes back to those chimpanzees, right? I mean, that's one of the most riveting things I've ever heard. They've got 8 chimpanzees in this big cage, and every time they go up to grab the fruit, they blast them with the ice water, right? And then every day they pull out one of the monkeys and they put a new one in. And it literally took 2 or 3 days for these guys to self-regulate something. And after 8 days, not one of those chimpanzees had ever been sprayed with water. But they don't go
Still,
up there
yeah.
because somebody else told them.
Yeah.
The first time, dude, it's horrible. That first chimpanzee goes up there and they're like, where are you going, dude? You're gonna be sprayed with water, bro. The monkey's like, I've never been sprayed with water. I don't even know what water is. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm telling you, go up there, bad shit's gonna happen, dude. Don't go up there. And then that same monkey 8 days later is telling the new monkey, don't go up there, man. There's bad shit going on. I don't know what it is, but I've been told it's horrible. And they live their life like that, just
Yeah.
based off of and never finding out for yourself. That is very terrifying, because if you can't figure it out for yourself, how do you defend what you're doing? You
Yeah.
don't even know why you're doing it. So I think it's magical, and it does expose some of the things that I like it, because I can't tell you how many times somebody's asked me, well, why do we do this? And I'll go, I'm gonna get back
Let's
to
go
you.
figure it out.
That's a great question, man. I don't know. I've been doing it like that my whole career. That's what they taught me, and I'm a product of my environment.
Yeah.
But how it, and dude, when I came up there, you weren't asking questions like that. Just do what I tell you to do. Don't be a lippy freaking, proby piece of shit. Listen. Oh, you're talking? That's weird. Nobody talked to you. Why are you talking? Like, how do you want me to thrive in this
Yeah.
environment where until I get 3 years on, then I can open my mouth? Dude, I learned so much shit teaching these kids in Recruit Academy, who some guys like, he's a rookie. I'm like, bro, this guy retired from Fort Lauderdale with 29 years on as a special operations captain. He ain't a rookie. He ain't a probie. Dude, when that guy I'm talking about, he would come to my station, they'd run a call, and I would have done all the chores, and he would lose his mind. Cap, what are you doing? I'm like, no big deal, Cap. He goes, you can't call me Cap. I'm like, you got 15 years on me, bro. I'm going to do the chores. You're literally 14 years seniority on me. I don't care that in my department, you've only got 8 months on.
Yeah.
You've been doing this fire service career twice the amount of time I've been doing it. I will show you the respect that you deserve. You're not going to be mopping the fucking floors, period, end dot. And that guy never told a soul, just came in because he's a good fireman. He knows how to play the game, and kudos to him for going through our recruit academy at freaking 48 or 49 years old. He's a warrior. But he is like the case in point where you look at it and go, he gets it.
Yeah.
Like he 100% gets it. And then you give that guy the leeway. The other guys that don't get it and don't care might be a little harder on them.
Yeah.
But what else?
Well, I definitely want to. I think another time having you on and just digging into that, those areas would be good, just because I know there's a lot more there. And
Oh
like I
yeah.
said, I think it needs to be talked about. It needs to be shared. So for sure, get you back on for that. We've been going, what, probably a little 2.5 hours ish. So I think you've even beat Rick out for the longest episode. So
Well,
is there anything else?
there was never gonna be a risk that I wasn't gonna be the longest.
He won't be
There
surprised if that's what you're
no.
saying.
Uh, the guys on the following shifts, w- when the call would drop at 9 and they're going, "Fuck, I gotta put my shit on the truck. I got tune it again." Because I'm just sitting in there telling them stories and that's why I show up an hour early to shift so I can tuna tail it up and then but like I told you the other day, man, that's some of the most rewarding times that I have. That's probably one of the things I miss the most. Is that kitchen table. You know,
Yeah.
that was a powerful thing.
Well, what else did we not touch on that you want to get out there? I mean, not that this is going to be your last time on, but is there anything that you wanted to for sure not forget?
Yeah. So um I had told you that I had that idea for just running up to people in the middle of the street with a camera and a microphone and go, you got 20 seconds. What do you want to tell the world? Right. Um, because just like we talked about, I can't tell you um, how thankful I am to have you in my life and to have this opportunity to share my story. Um, and there was a period of time where uh, I'm not really big on accolades or anything like that. So for me, just to be on here is very humbling. But one of the things that I do want to convey before we wrap this up is that it does not matter how deep you are in that hole. There are people that are willing to dig right beside you, and you might have two or three guys in that same hole with you digging, and it's so dark you can't see them. And don't let that create a place where you're willing to use a permanent fix for a temporary problem. And Josh Roberts is a captain uh, that worked with us, and I worked with him in pretty great or pretty extensively. And he took his life about 3 hours before he was going to get in a truck to go get help at the same place where I did. And a couple months later, I get a video from his wife of his daughter's dance recital. And having known Josh, I know exactly how much he loved his kids. And for him to leave his daughter, um, maybe that might be able to give you an inkling of a clue of how profound the fight was that he was involved in. And what I want to, if I had a message to give, uh, it would be that take care of your brothers and sisters. Um, this is not a job that is a 9 to 5, take the daily cash receipts to the bank. Um, there are consequences and repercussions for your actions that have great severity. Um, and in knowing so, that job can become very heavy. Um, I understand a lot of people are not comfortable with getting involved in other people's problems, but we love to throw the term brother and sister around a lot. And that term to me carries a ton of weight.
Yeah.
Um, and it represents something that I've spent my whole adult life believing in, sacrificing for, and loving. And when I was in my period of time graduating up from no magazine in the well to magazine in and one in the chamber, I truly thought that I was doing the most righteous thing in the world. because my girlfriend at the time would not leave me. And I thought the only way that she would leave uh, is for me to exit the situation. And it's so terrifying now to look back on that and go, man, how would you ever get in a position where you think taking your life is going to be the answer? Um, and I've gone back and forth, because I had a really close friend take his life in the firehouse, and that profoundly affected the guys that were involved. And again, another one of my brothers that loved his daughter more than anything on the planet. And if you've been close to that type of heartache, um, you can understand truly the ripple effect it has. Um, you want to talk about moral insult and injury, I mean, expecting somebody who was just involved with another brother taking his life at the firehouse and expecting him to work in the next couple of days. Um, I've worked really diligently in not letting other people's situations affect me emotionally, or tried to, but like something like that. You want to talk about wanting to go down and do bad things when you have one of your brothers crying out to God saying, I don't know what to do. Uh, they want me to go to work, and I'm not ready to go to work. That goes against every moral idea that I have. And so I guess my point is that it's a slippery slope, because like you talked about before, the victim mindset is very easy to fall into. But on the other hand, if you can't grasp and at least quantify the gravity of what goes on in your life day to day, uh, and the inherent stress that that creates, then we haven't done our due diligence to prepare you for a life in the fire service. And I guess I would just leave everybody with the fact that, you know, I used to in the morning shake everybody's hand, ask them about their family and everything, and there's some duality to that. I was doing it for a couple of reasons. One, because I was deeply entrenched in the dive program, and we always do a baseline mental status so that after a dive, you can see signs of, decompression illness or whatever, any type of side effects of something happening, barotrauma or whatever. I started incorporating that into my daily routine, because I could, if I was at a station 4 and I got a bunch of young guys, I want to know if they've been out of the strip club till 4 in the morning, what to expect, how they are. And in a department my size, I mean, even as one of the instructors, I could go into a station, even being there for 16 years, and not know a single person. That's extremely stressful for the officer, because you don't know what anybody's capabilities are. You don't know what their barrier of integrity into the job is, what they're willing to do. Like case in point, dude, I would literally have to ask every morning, who's my swimmer? Because after a couple of shifts, you realize that there's 3 or 4 guys that don't know how to swim in Florida. So my point is that we all think we know people. Um, I can promise you, I thought that I knew Josh, but we always snooze on the severity of other people's microcosms. If you can just take a little time out of your day, our instincts and our guts, especially as firemen, I would say 90% of the time, they're right on point. And if you get a gut feeling, listen, it doesn't have to be you. Go to your captain, go to your lieutenant, go to the senior Jake, whatever. But at least try to get an idea of what's going on in this guy's life. Sometimes it has literally, there's nothing that you're going to do to change it, but you creating a comfortable environment for this guy might be just what he needs to survive through whatever it is he's going through. I had a guy call me at like 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and said, "Hey, you got a few minutes?" And I said, "You know where I live? I'm here." So he shows up, and we get in my side by side, and we drive out to this management area, and we sit there, and I have to be at shift in just a couple hours, but we drink, he brought a 6 pack, and we finished the beer, and he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, Cap, we're out of beer." I said, "Okay." Jump off the tailgate, And he turns around and bear hugs me. Uh, and he says, I don't know how to be able to thank you for this. And I'll tell you, man, I was feeling the same exact way. We didn't say a word, not a word. We just sat there getting crushed by mosquitoes. And the realization came later on that day when I was teaching. I was like, man, what would have happened if I didn't answer that phone? I didn't have to do anything. He just needed human contact. He needed that comfort. And if I do come on again, one of the other massive topics I want to talk about is masculinity and the perception of what that looks like, what's acceptable and what's not. Because, when you have to try to hide who you are because it's not socially acceptable, or everybody at this point in life, for some freaking reason, has an affinity to judge everybody else, that creates a really confusing environment for a young fireman.
Yeah.
Um, you're trying to make a whole bunch of people happy, yet you're also going through things every single day. That's not even, we're not even talking about life. Life is hard enough as it is. You start throwing a group of guys that think that you're a whatever you want to call it because you got emotional after a call. What do you think that guy's going to do from now on? He's just going to internalize that. And we both know that's the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And so I guess my thing that I'm trying to convey in a really roundabout, horribly diluted way is, if you have the capacity to do so, and you're going to be bullshitting about something that's stupid anyways, if you have a feeling, just talk to the person. Just even if it's just being non shit talking for 30 minutes, step outside of that whole aura of what we think we're supposed to be and be a human being, because you do that for one of your other friends. But because we have this stigma about PTSD and about our mental health, I mean, shit, dude, we as firemen have way more leeway than law enforcement officers do because they carry a firearm. Those guys literally internalize everything, because the second you say that you're not okay, see you later. Dude, I don't know how many guys I know that are on ketamine and they're on shift. How many guys that are microdosing mushrooms? And kudos to the department for allowing that, because it's huge. I mean, it's saving guys' lives. But we're able to do that, yet we can't be nice to each other. It's just, to me, I think I truly believe that your fire service career has this very natural evolution. And especially if you make officer, if that doesn't change you, I don't know what will. If that doesn't breed a powerfully instinctive protective mechanism inside of you because of the responsibility you carry to those guys and girls, then I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
But in doing so, I do think that officers, one of the parts of making our money is to be able to have a clue of where our crew is. I'll get phone calls all the time, guys going, "Hey, I need leadership advice," and they screaming and yelling about something, and I'll just ask them, like, "Is that normal for the guy?" No. Would you ask him if he's got anything going on at home? Well, no. Well, you didn't? That's probably the reason why he's acting in a way that he hasn't acted before. Why don't you give a shit? Because his personal life dramatically affects his ability and his performance at work. That's the part you're responsible for. So, at bare minimum, whether it's management referral or whatever, which I've never done a management referral simply because I think it's absolutely bullshit. Um, you should be able to create a relationship with somebody and illustrate to them their need to go get help before forcing them. I can't, I know that my buddies that have been forced, man, it's a really negative mindset going into whatever EAP or whatever it is they're making you do. You're going to tell them whatever you need to tell them to make this go away as fast as possible. You're sure as hell not going to take this as like, oh man, well, maybe this is a sign that I should go talk to somebody. No, you're being forced to do this. Just like you're being forced to do things that you feel are immoral.
Yeah.
That's where the problem exists. And until we start treating each other like human beings, knocking off the sarcasm. Sarcasm's awesome in certain senses, but when you're constantly attacking someone else, we both know, man, everybody's human. Everybody is prey to those sensations, those emotions, that feeling, because we're all measured, right? Every single day at work, whether you're measured by your seniority number, whether you're measured by your proficiency, your skill, your bedside manner, whatever it is, we're constantly in a perpetual state of assessment. That in and of itself is uber stressful. So allowing people to understand that there's this whole world of ambient stress that we deal with, that if you start managing those ambient levels of stress, it will dramatically affect your ability to process and do the things that you need to do at work. And that's a holistic approach, man. That's friends and officers being involved. And that's why it's so important. Like one of my buddies I love, Jason Martino, dude, doesn't matter if he's a battalion chief, a captain, he's taking his crew out. His crew comes to his house for dinner. Those guys will take a bullet for him in a heartbeat. When they do training, he out trains physically every one of those guys because he's passionate about it. He shows the love towards them. He brings them to their house so that he knows their families, so that you feel, dude, we had a chief that literally knew every fireman's name in our department. And I don't know why, but man, if you didn't see Chief Bryce for 3 or 4 years and he walked up and he goes, "Hey, Tuna, how's your wife? Lauren." I'm like, holy shit. He knows my wife's name too. Just that tiny, tiny little thing. Now, he might have had a cheat sheet. I don't know. I don't think he did. He was one of the most genuine, came from the bottom all the way up to the chief. But just that little piece where you knew that he took the effort just to know your name. It's amazing how we have just detuned ourselves from the little things that matter. And, you know, when I would have a chief show up and go, "Hey, man, every time I see you on the calendar, I just relax because I know we're going to get shit done." I was on cloud nine for like 6 months. But I've had other chiefs that have never told me a positive thing in my entire fucking career.
Yeah.
Am I willing to work harder for that chief? Yeah. Because he shows appreciation for the sacrifice and for all the hard work and the due diligence and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing with your brothers. A nice word here or there. I know that sounds like something that a little girl would say, but it's the truth, man. It's the small things that matter, especially when you're in the hole, man.
Oh yeah.
And I just, I just wish that people would take ownership of the fact that their words have meaning, and that, tough people try to say, or people that think they're tough will say, words don't bother me. That's horse shit. Because if you're prideful and you care about your work, you're going to care what people think. Now, how you let that affect you, that's entirely up to you. But there's a reason why there's movie stars that literally can't watch or read comments. This is a guy who's got millions of dollars, dude, will openly admit that some troll online can affect his life. A guy who's driving around in a Bugatti Veyron with a $10 million mansion, who's light years above us, is bothered by something that some dude who probably just made it up said.
Yeah.
So there is truth to the fact that our words carry meaning, they carry weight. And if we could just create the mindset in the station that we're a family and that it's us against the world, it just creates these really tight bonds. And I don't mean us against the world. I just mean us as a highly cohesive unit. And the only way that happens is if you know the guys. So I just would hope and pray that the guys and girls, as the fire service gets harder and harder and harder, what in the world? Why are you guys home? The holy, forgot to pick up my kids at the school bus. Thanks, Jeremy.
Oh gosh.
There's no way. It's 2:30. I'm sorry, guys. Disregard everything I said about being a good dad. Wow, dude, we've been on the phone or on this long.
It's been a while,
Wow,
yeah.
holy cow! You guys want to be famous? Griff, come over here. Say
So,
hi.
hey.
Hello.
All right, get out of here.
But no, I appreciate your
A
time,
little bit.
man. I love just hearing your heart. You're a guy with a gigantic heart. I love the vulnerability and everything else. You've taught me a lot in all of those areas just in a short amount of time. So I really appreciate you and everything you do, and thankful to have you in my life. So enjoyed the conversation, and I hope that a lot of people hear it. And I do, and I'm writing notes here just for the next time that I have you on, just because there's a lot of, that we didn't even get to talk into. So definitely have you back to get into more of that as well. But I appreciate it, and go say your apologies for for missing.
All right.
But
Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to, uh, you've been saying nice things, uh, to all your listeners, man. Uh, this is something you should be listening to because this guy gets it probably more than anybody I've ever met. And, you, it is crazy that we've known each other about a year. And I literally consider you like right up there in my top five, man. And, you definitely push me every day to be better, and just very thankful to have you in my life as well. And we never even talked about DHP, but I
no.
will tell you that the one thing that I would say is that we talk about our tribe, right? And I had never truly understood what that term meant until you guys. And you said something the other day. I've never been a part of something that after a week of being with the guys, hey, Shy, I'm on a podcast that's going to be viewed by people. Can you please go? I love you. Bye. Um, is that how powerful it is when you find your tribe, and that everybody has a tribe. But when you find your tribe, I literally cry my eyes out driving home from teaching with you guys because I don't want to leave you guys. That if that doesn't say something, I don't know what else will
Yep.
convey to you appropriately the love that I have for you guys. And I think there's a myriad of things too. Uh, even with my back, just being around hose and volunteering my time, uh, just brings me back to a really good place. And you represent that for me. Mark represents that. Rick, Army, all those guys. Um, when you find a group of people that literally make you want to be a better human being every time you're around them, spend as much time as you can with them because it does nothing but create just good things. So thank you again, Jay, for having me on, man. I'm humbled in a way that I can't properly articulate to you. Um, and I just thank God all the time that I've got you guys in my life because you guys have helped me through a lot of hard times and inspired me to do some things that I probably wouldn't have done. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on.
You bet, man. I look forward to getting you out there a little bit more. So it was a good conversation, and had some deep stuff, had some fun stuff, and so just about what I would expect it to be. So until next time, I always have said, do work, stay humble, that stuff, and I've almost kind of, I think this is a good time to maybe change that up, just because of the conversation today and some things that I've been dealing with in my personal life here lately. So we're going to change it up, and I'm going to say from now on that until next time, look forward to getting back on and sharing my story and others with you. But until then, just know that we will not lower our standards just because others refuse to raise theirs. So thank you for your time.
I love it.